Hey West Seattle, thanks for joining us for West Seattle Daily, episode number 33 on this Thursday, brought to you by Seatown Real Estate. I'm your host, Christian Harris. With February being Black History Month, on this Throwback Thursday episode, we are on our second to last installment on this topic of long-lasting effects of institutionalized racism in real estate. So not the funnest topic to discuss, but I do think it's important to go over history and understand where we came from and where we're going in an industry that affects so many people's lives across the country and in our community. For some additional context, listen to our last couple Throwback Thursday episodes. It's on YouTube or on IGTV. Last week, we talked about the effects of racial restrictive covenants tied to specific properties or entire neighborhoods that prohibited non-whites from residing in those locations. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the Fair Housing Act of 1968. This officially made it illegal and provided a meaningful federal enforcement for prohibiting discrimination based on race, religion, national origin, or sex in the sale, rental, or financing of housing. The Fair Housing Act has an interesting history. It's actually part of the larger Civil Rights Act, enacted in 1968 by President Lyndon B. Johnson during the Martin Luther King assassination riots. It is built on the already established Civil Rights Act of 1866, which defined U.S. citizenship and affirms that all citizens are equally protected by the law. In the wake of the Civil War, this law was intended to protect the civil rights of persons of African descent born in or brought to the U.S. as slaves. This legislation was a major support of the 13th Amendment and was passed by Congress, but vetoed by the then Democrat Andrew Johnson, and then overruled by a 2/3 majority vote of the Republican majority Congress, making this bill the first major piece of legislation where Congress overrode a presidential veto, allowing it to become law without a presidential signature. The problem with the civil rights laws that were on the books prior to 1968 is that none of them had an enforcement mechanism built into them. So there was nothing that could be done if these laws were violated. And let's be honest, from what we have observed from history, it didn't really sound like the majority of society or even the government had any real intention of enforcing such laws back then. It's taken us a long time as a society to be able to get to a place where we can have honest conversations about racial issues. So while overt and on-the-books racism may be a thing of the past, our individual biases and prejudices are something we still need to be keenly aware of. And we'll talk more about that on next Thursday's Throwback episode. Until then, have a great week.